All right, and hey, welcome back to the Gulf Coast Growth Show. I'm your host, Jason Lee. This is my co-host, Clint Aiken. It's great to be back. It's great to be back in studio for season 7 as we kick this thing off. And to kick it off, we have got a great guest today, Miss Ana Hernandez. She is a state representative here in Texas for District 143, and we're going to learn a lot about today. In the past we've had people in your position, and I think one thing I always want to stress to our audience is just the body of service that it really represents, because a lot of people don't know this, but of all the people out there in the trenches serving our communities, they wear 2 shields. They have a day job, and then they have their job as a representative for you and for our regions.
Somehow they have to balance family in there too.
And then so when you really think about it, because I know my jobs, and so really we're talking about multiple hats, and so she took the time to be with us today. I'm very appreciative, and thank you and so much for that. And why don't you do this? Why don't you take some time to kind of give us a background, because you got a great background, and you're a local person, right? You grew up here, committed to this community. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, thank you. Well, hello everyone, and thank you for having me on your show as we kick off a new season, so I appreciate the invitation. I'm Ana Hernandez, State Representative for District 143. I'm in my 16th year in office. I ran in a special election in 2005. But I have almost 24 years in state government.
Wow.
I started as an intern when I was at the University of Houston, political science major, sure. Political science and psychology, and did an internship in the fall of 1997 and then just never left.
Wow.
So I've been a staff, I've worked on the campaign, I've worked at the Capitol office and the district office, and so something that I truly enjoy. And as you said, it's a call, and I think it's a gift, to have a servant heart and be able to serve our community. Since I was a kid, I always wanted to be a lawyer, and I'm not sure where I got that idea, because I don't come from a family of lawyers. We didn't have any lawyers in our family. I, since I was a little girl, said I want to go to law school.
Wow.
So I ended up going to law school at the University of Texas, and so it was right after I graduated from the University of Texas that, unfortunately, my predecessor, the late Representative Joe Moreno, passed away in a car accident. And so it was overnight. There was a special election called. I was like 8 months out of law school.
Wow.
When they said, well, you should run. You know the job. You've worked in the office. You grew up in the area. I grew up here in Pasadena, which at the time Pasadena was in the district. Since redistricting, it's no longer in District 143. And so I didn't give it, a second thought. I said, I'll do it, because I truly do enjoy the job of being able to serve our community. And as a state representative, we can do that. Use the office, use the resources that we have to be able to help our community, whether it's families, whether it's businesses, to be able to flourish. And so that is something that I've enjoyed. It's a challenge, as you mentioned, because it's a part-time position. As a state representative, we only get paid $600 a month. And I say, and that's before taxes, because it's $472 after taxes a month. So it's a part-time position.
You're so rich.
So we have to have, another way of paying our bills. And so I try to balance the law practice, legislative service, and also family. I have a beautiful 9-year-old boy that keeps us busy. This past season, he decided he wanted to play football and soccer. So pretty much every night we had soccer practice or football practice or a game, and sometimes twice a night. And so,
but the running keeps his energy down.
Oh,
right?
yes, yes, very high energy, really very high energy, yes. But I mean, as you know, if you have a family, it takes a village, and so thankfully I have a good support network that helps me be able to fulfill all of my responsibilities. But I truly enjoy it, and so I welcome this opportunity to be able to connect by another means with our community.
That's fantastic, and I think when you hear a story like that, I know I personally think about people inside of this community, and especially females. I'm a girl dad, and I know Clint is as well. And so when you hear a story of a female from our community stepping into the business world, but not only doing that, but at such an early age, I mean, to step into that type of leadership, it's an inspiring story. I mean, because you weren't stepping into a job as the shift manager at your first gig. You were stepping into a legislative job coming out of college. I mean, it's unimaginable to think about that. So when you said 24 years, I was trying to do the math in my head, looking at you going, I'm like,
well, I was a little heads up. I mean,
look, this is the best looking 60-year-old I've ever met. What are you doing, girl? Because I was waiting for you to do some kind of infomercial at the end of the deal about your beauty supply products or something you were on. So, but that's a phenomenal
fast
story.
Track it. I mean, that's one thing that when I talk to high school students and youth, I said, do not rush through life. I mean, I knew I wanted wanted to go to law school. Knew it was going to take 7 years for undergraduate and college. And so I graduated high school when I was 16 because I was set on going to law school and graduating. And so it was during undergraduate that I was exposed to state government and loved it. And so I actually took a couple of years off and said, I'm going to enjoy, this stage in my life. And so that's my advice to youth. Enjoy every phase
in
life.
I love it. I'm going to have to, my daughter's watching this episode, so for sure. So talk to us about your day job. I mean, I know that's got to be tough on top of all these things. Just place the day in the life of when you're not out and running government stuff and doing government things. What does a day in the life look like for you?
Well, as we all know, these last couple of years have been very challenging with the pandemic and then having to adjust to Zoom, to virtual means. And so for us, what I've enjoyed in my legislative role is being out in the community, being out at Civic Club meetings, at chambers luncheons, at senior centers. We have over 16 centers in our district that we go and visit. So all of that kind of got shut down. So we had to be kind of creative in how we continue to reach out to our community. And so we knew during this time there was a lot of need. And I know many organizations were helping the community in providing food and PPE and other things. And so that has kind of adjusted right now. I see things are starting to open up, and I hope that we continue on that trend, that we will be able to be back together. In February, we have a big seniors dance that we host every year.
Cool.
And it varies from 250 seniors to 400 seniors that come. We have dancing, we have door prizes, they have lunch. And so it's something that I know our seniors really look forward to. That we're hoping that we'll be able to host in February on Valentine's Day. So if you're looking for a Valentine. And also my significant other, Judge Victor Trevino, has also offered to, if anyone wants to renew their vows or get married that day.
That's pretty cool. That's awesome. I screwed up my first proposal to my wife. I only actually have one proposal to my wife. Let me back up. But I screwed it up. And so I'm going to sneak her into that seniors deal.
Yes,
I'm roll up. I know it's a little awkward, it's a little different, it's not our people, but I surprised you, so maybe I'll get this one right. That's unbelievable, by the way. Let me ask you a question. When it comes to, so our audience can better understand your, the day in the life of your, not day in the life of, but your role specifically. Because a lot of people I don't think understand what state representatives literally means, right? And this is a two-pronged question. First question is, we just got redistricted. So what does that mean? And then the second part is if I'm living in that district, right? I hear this and I go, oh, she's in my district. Why do I need to know what my state rep does, right? Because when I'm watching the news, I'm watching all this stuff that's happening, and they say Austin and Washington and this and that. There's something that you're specifically centered around and focused on that's maybe slightly different than those that are in Congress or in other parts of local government. So maybe you could help educate us on that.
Yeah. Well, I'll start by letting you know where my district office is. So we all have a capital office, but we also have a district office in our district. And mine is in Jacinto City. It's 1233 Mercury Drive at the corner of Market and Mercury. It's the old City Hall building, so that's easy for people to find. So we have our district office and we have our capital office. And so it's like we wear different hats. It's a 2-year term for a state representative. And so at the beginning of our term, it's usually the odd number year when we take the oath of office, second Tuesday of January, which was January of 2021. That starts our legislative session. Our legislative session is 140 days. That's written in the Constitution, unless the governor calls us back for a special session. And so this year we had 3 special sessions. So instead of being there for 140 days, we were there, about 10 months.
Wow.
In different special sessions. And so that is at the beginning of a legislative term. Is our session, when bills are filed, when committees are meeting in Austin, when I encourage the community and different advocates to come up to Austin and participate in that process, either in person when we have committee hearings, or they can send emails or phone calls, or at this time we did also virtual testimony for people to be able to provide their opinion. I think that is important. That is key in this legislative process, that we have the community involved. We try to do our best to be out to meet with different groups that get different perspectives as we're contemplating, and discussing legislation. So I encourage the community to please get involved in there. We won't be back in session to the regular session until January of 2023. But at that point, you can sign up for legislation to get alerts. if there's a certain subject matter that you're interested in.
Wow.
You can sign up to get alerts on legislation that's filed and how that legislation is progressing through the session. So you can know when there's a hearing or things that are being taken into consideration. So that's the legislative side during the regular session. We usually come back after the session and back in the district, and then we have the community side, our constituent casework. So we have, particularly in my area, we had a lot of people dealing with unemployment benefits, with food benefits, and so as you saw, there were a lot of unemployment benefit claims that were filed, and so the Texas Workforce Commission was a bit overwhelmed, and so they asked our offices to help field some of those calls.
Oh, wow.
So our staff were taking turns filling those calls, hundreds of calls in cases. And so I actually have a staff person that does nothing but those unemployment cases to follow up. Sometimes when people don't know where to call, where to start. And so I say, just call our office. If it's something that we can help you with, if it's a state agency that you need help with, then we will be able to help you that. If it's a federal matter or a local matter, then we know where to direct you and be able to follow up to make sure that you get what the assistance that you need.
Absolutely.
So that's the constituent casework that we do here. So it kind of goes back and forth, and as I say, it's also called the interim. So the legislature is not in session right now, but we have interim committee charges, and those are charges, things that the speaker has asked each committee to review, to have hearings, to do research on in preparation for the next session. You can't just show up on January and say, okay, let's go. No, you have to do all of that work ahead of time to be ready to go, because 5 months for a regular session is not a long time.
Right.
And actually, the Texas Constitution does not allow us to start taking up legislative matters before the 60th day, unless the governor has declared it an emergency.
Okay.
Issue. So if he declares an emergency, we can take it up before the 60th day. But normally, those first 2 months, we're not moving any legislation. So you're really only left with less than 3 months at the end of session to move things through both chambers.
Wow. Okay. And then go to football games. Do all that,
yes, and then my other hat as a mother, I have a 9-year-old son, so taking him to football games, taking him to school events.
Right. I was struggling to pick out my outfits for today. I was like, I don't even know how I'm going to do this. I had to get help from my wife. It was not easy. And you're making it happen. Wow.
And with redistricting, your district expanded too, so
right,
you've gotten more workload, right?
Yes, the redistricting election. So every 10 years we fill out the census, and so that was last year that we were filling out the census, and that data is used to redraw the lines for state representatives, for state senators, state board of education, so and Congress, to make sure that they're equal population in every district. I mean, you don't want one district that has twice as many residents as the other district. So we redraw the lines, and so it's roughly, the districts are 194,000 for a state representative, and so we have to redraw that line. In Harris County, a lot of that growth that was documented in the census, because I think there was definitely an undercount during the census. Right. The pandemic and other things going on. So it showed that a lot of the growth in Harris County was up in the northwest area. So you'll see that the districts have kind of shifted in that area. My district, which includes the east end part of Houston, 2nd Ward, Magnolia Park, Denver Harbor, and then I go east along I-10 to Galena Park, DeSoto City, North Shore, Channelview. And the new area will be Baytown now. And so the Baytown area was the area that was added into the current District 143 to make sure that I was within the population variation.
Oh, great. Fantastic. And so you talked about interim years, and that was a great kind of transition, because I think we all know what's been going on, and from a special session, you guys have been called in. If anybody's tuned into the news, there's been a lot to tackle, right? So we won't speak specifically to that, but let's just talk about this year. So we're in an interim, kind of an off year, and so you represent a huge part of the Port region, which is a huge part of our stakeholders and audience. Talk to us about that. Talk to us about what some of the priorities are, some of your focuses over the next 12 months.
I think, very proud to represent our Port region, because it's important not only for here in our local area, but for our state and the entire nation. We see when the port shuts down, whether it was with a winter storm or whether it's a hurricane, that has tremendous impact throughout the country.
Absolutely.
And so it's important that we're focusing on protecting our people and our assets.
Right.
Here in our area, and so trying to build on that economic development, make sure. A lot of my constituents work in the port area. My father worked at a refinery before he retired, and so I know it provides many jobs for our area. And we make sure that we have the proper training, which I know the Economic Alliance has done a great job in partnering with our high schools, with our community college, to make sure we have that workforce in the pipeline and prepare to enter the workforce. And so that's always at the forefront of my mind to make sure that we have that, thriving. But we also have, as we focus to the next session with the winter storm, that's still on our mind as we're coming back into the next winter season, to make sure that we continue to build, a stronger electric grid. And so there was legislation that was passed last session that's kind of being implemented right now on weatherization and making sure that the lights will turn on when we need them to turn on, that the heat will turn on during a winter storm. And so that legislation is being implemented right now. The PUC, the Railroad Commission, they're adopting rules to see how we carry that out. I mean, we know things don't change overnight. Mm-hmm. And so it's important to take the time to make sure we do it right. Yeah. So that's what's happening right now. And we'll hear back from them. I mean, the information that we'll start getting next year, like I said, in preparation for the session, and see what additional legislation is needed.
Fantastic. Well, I think that that covers a lot of what we wanted to tackle today. This is always where we like to transition a little bit to just kind of, as we wrap up the show, we like to, humanize the folks, because people see folks and they see them out in roles like yours, and they forget that they've got soccer games and football games and little kids and things that matter to them. So maybe you could walk us through some of your background, or the things that you enjoy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Family. Okay. Family is very important to me, and I think what makes me a better legislator, that I'm going through the same struggles and challenges as other families, mm-hmm. to not only take care of the law practice and the legislative duties, but also balance that with the family, saying who's going to go pick up the child from school, who's going to take them to this event, birthday parties that get
right.
get thrown in there too, especially with younger children. There are a lot of birthday parties that are going on of just having a well-rounded, balanced life. And I think that's important. And this, like I said, this year has been challenging because of the pandemic, but that, I think, helps me as a legislator.
Be able to squeeze in maybe a slightly longer winter break, take a little vacation for yourself?
Yes. Well, the other part of this job, too, is the campaign side. And so right now is the filing period. And so I know by December 13th, we'll know if there's a campaign layer that will be added to everything else that we have to do. So as state representatives, we've run every 2 years. It's a 2-year term. And so we're in session at the beginning of the term, and then the second half, it's time for re-election.
Right.
Our senators have 4-year terms, and of course, Congress also has 2-year terms. I think that's even more challenging because you're traveling to Washington. I know a lot of people kind of get confused between a state representative and going to Austin, or right. a member of Congress going to D.C. I am in Austin. Right. State representatives go to Austin to state capitol in Austin every 2 years.
So since you grew up in the area, kind of a softball question, is there any hidden parks or something that you really enjoy going to with your son, or kind of this, something most people may not know about that you really cherish in the region?
To go out, like I said, it's a lot of his sports that take up our time. So the places where he can go, where he can practice his baseball or practice his soccer. We're going into basketball. So this Sunday he'll have his I guess it's assessment. I don't think they call them tryouts. They call them assessments.
Oh, nice.
A fancy word for tryout.
For basketball. But I will say, speaking of parks, I think it's important that we invest in our community parks, and I'm proud that this past session I was able to secure $1 million for our park in Denver Harbor, the Selena Quintanilla Park. That was, and that's about being out in the community and hearing from the community what their needs or what their wants are. Before the session, we had a meeting out there. The Civic Club invited me out there and said, come look and see, the condition of our park, the playground, the baseball fields, and just kind of giving a list of lighting, the walking trail, a list of things that they wanted. And so, of course, that's the back of my mind during session, and being able to include funding for that, $1 million for them to be able to have improvements in their park. Yes. And so we want to do more of that.
Sure.
We have our meeting for this particular park next Tuesday, where we'll hear from the community, because of course it has to be community driven on what they want to see, and also see what's feasible within the budget, but also focusing on that. So I think our community parks, there's a park a couple blocks from us that we take our son to, just kind of ride around on our bikes and
So I think as we wrap up the show, one thing I could just tell based on that, because we turned to personal, and it still kind of came back to your passion around what's happening in your local community, which is right. So and I think that I would encourage those that are listening, because you're always they're reading books, they're writing articles, they're talking about do something you love. and so sometimes I think people can get a misinterpretation of, because you hear the term politician and you might misinterpret why they wake up every day, right? Because sometimes they have to step in front of things that aren't fun, right? That's part of leadership, and but you can tell that it embodies a passion for you, right? This is your area, this is where you grew up, these are your people, you're one of those people, right? The people you work with and live with are your people, and so I think it's amazing to see that, and the life of sacrifice that you guys make for our region is just applauded, so we appreciate that. So is there anything else, special events, certain topics or things that we didn't tackle today that you want to make sure we tell the story about?
Like I said, I want to make sure that we have your participation and input as we continue during the interim and the next session. So I'll make sure to share the information whenever we have our committee hearings. We haven't been able to have any because we've been in special sessions, but typically around this time we already have committee hearings where that's where your input is important and is valued and is welcomed.
Fantastic.
So you've already shared the address for y'all's offices, but do you want to share the website too? Is that where they go? Or
so it's a long.
what do you recommend?
Yeah, the Texas Capitol. That if you go to the Texas House landing page, the website, that's where you can see all the resources of all the members, all the committee, the agendas. Once we get committee hearings going, that will be posted there as well. That's where you can sign up for alerts if legislation is happening. So it's house.texas.gov.
Okay. Great. And I think before the show we were talking about some kind of open house you guys were having or something like that. Can you tell me about that?
Yes. I know by the time we air the show, it'll be January.
Oh, it'll be January. Is it too late? Okay. Tell us about the premise of it so people know what it's
right. Like. So every year we send out a newsletter. And so from our state office, we're allowed to send newsletters to give updates, what happened during session or community updates. And so every year we send out a newsletter inviting the entire community, because this is a list that comes from the Secretary of State of every single registered voter in District 143 will get this newsletter.
Wow.
And that is where we take the opportunity to invite them to our district office open house. And we have that every year. And I say it's just a reminder of people to know that that's their office, that we're there to serve them, to please come in. Our doors are always open and we're here to serve them.
Perfect. So by the time someone listens to this, they're going to know if they're in the district, if they're not already signed up for the newsletter.
They will have received the newsletter by this time. Yes.
Get it, and you can be at next year's open house and make sure that you stay informed of what's happening in your area. So Anna, it was just a pleasure and a gift having you with us today.
Thank you.
Gang, we're glad to have you back. We're excited, ready to kick off the new season. 2022 is going to be a great year. We're counting on that.
It almost sounds weird to hear 2022. That's just weird.
I forget. Yeah, it flew by fast these last couple of years. So we're excited to be out there. Excited to have great people like yourself on the show. Again, always remember to stay tuned. You can follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook. You can subscribe at the Economic Alliance Houston Port Region's website. Right there on the media tab at the top, there's a place where you can actually click, drop down, and subscribe to your favorite channel. You can even get updates when we release new episodes. So make sure you tune in, stay informed of what's happening, and we look forward to seeing you guys on the next episode. Thanks.